Hey, this is Sarah, and I'm joined by Trisket, and this video is going to cover Apex rush boxes in general and some general band pick strategy for playing Apex Arena. So, as for credentials, Trisket and I both made Langrisser rank this past weekend. This will be the third season in a row that we're Langrisser rank, and this is just for context, but typically I end in top 25 at the end of each season, and Trisket's usually in the top 100 somewhere.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, say hi, Trisket.
Hi.
She's just going to be offering some side commentary as we go through some general strategies for rush boxes and how to play against them and how to play with them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Trisket, do you want to talk about your experience with rush boxes briefly?
All right, so once upon a time at the start of season 3, I was playing the season 2 slow push meta, and I had a 40% win rate by the end of the first weekend. And that felt pretty bad. But this past weekend, um, I tried a rush box and I went 9 and 1 and got Langrisser all the way from gold 3 in one weekend. So it it works. It really works. That's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, and that's not to say that Rush works for everyone. I mean, you sort of have to have certain characters built. However, I think it's incredibly fun to play hyper aggressively sometimes. I probably played about 100 games this season using exclusively a Rush box. The box can be played slow, the one I'm playing, but it's geared towards breaking tanks and rushing down your opponent pretty quickly. And obviously, I had some success and some failures with it. So it's not for everyone. And in some respects, you need to whale out on certain characters. But understanding how to play a rush box also gives you insight on how to play against a rush box. So we'll try to be answering both of those questions as we go through. Primarily, we're going to be talking about important components of a rush box, band pick strategy if you're the rush box player, and in-game tactics. And then we'll do a couple short videos or replays of a game where I won one and I lost one using my rush strategy. So I'll point out common mistakes in the game where I beat my opponent, and then you'll see a game where I essentially fight the season 2 champion, Hizuchio, using his main account. So first, let's start talking about important components of a rush box. Here's, in general, the rush team I'm running right now. I'm definitely going to modify it. I think Sakura and Josh slow it down. But typically, you're looking for the high mobility, high threat characters like Zerida and Claret. And the reason I characterize this as a rush box, some people might say, oh, that's just a normal box. You just run 2 tanks, Landius and Juggler, and 3 healers, Liana, Iris, and Tiaris. But the reason I consider it a rush box is yes, it can adapt into a slower playstyle. However, it's geared towards high threats. And if they give you the opportunity, you go for it. Maybe that's not the best strategy, but it's incredibly fun and makes Apex enjoyable for me. So, important components of a rush box are, I think, first off, a tank buster. It's not always necessary because you have a lot of guard bypass. Typically, Zerida can guard bypass. Die, Diehard can if you choose to run him. You might not even need guard bypass. If you run Leon with his 3 cost, he can bring Blue Dragon Strike and just completely AoE the enemy away from their tank. So you might not even need guard bypass. But you need some way to address the tank. If you're just running up and attacking into their tank, you're going to have a bad time unless you have somebody who can one shot like Elwyn. But I don't run Elwyn in a rush box because he's slow. And unless you Iris toss him, you're going to have issues keeping up without a breeze proc. So you want a tank buster, and typically your go-to are going to be Claret and Mystery Knight. Varash can do it. Leon can do it. I think eventually Yusuke, when he gets his 3 cost, can do it.
I think even some of like the top end Lunas can sometimes kill jugglers.
Yeah, and we'll get into specific tank busting, why you should build around one tank in a minute, because it's going to be hard to build tank busters that are equipped to deal with both tanks reliably. But yeah, Luna can do it if she's built well. I think she might even need SR gear for that at this stage, like Oak Jacket and the
And
SR.
barrier lance.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, you generally want a tank buster, and so when we get into the band pick phase of this, it'll make a little bit more sense. But for me, I'm relying on Claret and Mystery Knight right now. They both do an exceptional job at it. I think even a 5-star, or even, I wouldn't go down to 4-star, but even a 5-star Claret would be good at it. I think Trisket had success this past weekend with it. Did your 5-star Claret have any issues killing tanks?
My 5-star Claret can kill a juggler as long as he only has one defensive buff, so either with faction buff or with Triton, but not with both. And since I first banned Landius, I don't worry about Landius, so and that's just with Claret having a faction buff or a gospel or anything. So if I were to add, like an additive buff, like a attack blessing or Jarden,
King's
she
Crown, yeah.
King's Crown. If I were to stack those, she can take care of a juggler no problem for me at 5 stars.
Yeah. So you don't need everyone at 6 stars to be viable. I think a 5-star Claret works. I'm using a 5-star Mystery Knight, works just fine. The other important component for a rush box, you need high mobility threats. I mean, it's not so much a rush box if you don't have people to follow up. So if Claret goes in and busts down a tank, she's kind of sitting there alive. Well, maybe they attack into her, and maybe I want to counter with Zerida or a Diehard who has got long reach, or Hiei who can move a considerable amount of spaces, especially if he is breeze procs. So you definitely want high mobility threats for the follow up and for the spacing. You also want significant synergy or self sufficiency. So when I say synergy, if I lock in Zerida, she's immediately going to buff a lot of high high threats. For example, Zerida is going to buff Hiei, Claret, Diehard, Joshua, and that's it for now. However, if I get to pick one or two of those, it's hugely beneficial. Luna doesn't really need a faction buff. She can buff herself if she really wants it. Mystery Knight is kind of the odd one here. She only gets buffed by Yeles and
Strat.
Strat, and I run no Strat buffers. However, the only Yeles buffer I have is Landius, and he gets banned pretty early on because he buffs Claret and Mystery Knight. However, when I say you need high or significant synergy or self-sufficiency, Mystery Knight gets benefits from every single healer. Attack Blessing from Tiaris, Gospel with Plushie from Liana, or Jarden from Iris. And so if I choose to lock in Mystery Knight, as long as I pick any one of my healers, she definitely has a buff. And then self-sufficiency, like Leon, he's got Chivalry, which gives him the attack and defense bonus. So he doesn't need a faction buff. And then likewise, if I decide to play a slower game, like first picking Juggler, he enables a lot more options as well, like he'll buff Luna, Diehard, Hiei. And I think that's it. I mean, obviously Tiaris, but just make sure you have a lot of synergy and you're not ending up with a wonky box. Something that would be terrible for me to end up with synergy wise would be Listel, Sakura, Hiei, maybe Joshua. Josh just buffs himself. Sakura and Listel don't benefit from either of the healer's buffs. Hiei minimally benefits from them. So that would be a pretty terrible box. But even if Sakura and Listel don't get buffed, it's not the end of the world. They usually don't rely on their buffs for what you bring them for. And you really want multiple options. So the next important component is that you want multiple options. I'm not just relying on Claret to tank bust. If they ban Claret, I can lock in Mystery Knight. Likewise, if they ban Mystery Knight, I can bring Claret. And even if, like, let's say they ban Landius, I grab Juggler. They ban Mystery Knight, and so I don't have a faction buffer for Claret. I can buff Claret with any of the 3 healers. So you want multiple options for achieving the same thing. Likewise, if I don't have a good Claret or Mystery Knight, I can just bring Leon. Most people have built Leons, and he can accomplish the same thing by spreading apart the enemy so that characters can pick them off. And I think the final component to a rush box is your own creativity. I think it's important to be highly creative when playing rush. You need to be able to adapt to a variety of situations and the enemy composition, whereas it's not as simple and straightforward as grab a tank, grab a healer, and grab a couple high threats to win you the game. You need to be able to run creative formations that can address a variety of solutions. For example, if the enemy, a common strategy is for the enemy to lock in a Yulia against you. Yulia is incredibly difficult to kill unless you bring somebody like Sakura or Claret. And even if you bring one of these people, a Gospel or just debuff removal can really shut you down. So how do you deal with people like Yulia? This is where you have to get creative, bring people like Hiei, a properly timed Listel, etc. It's incredibly important. So those are what I consider the important components of a rush box. Did you want to comment on any of those components, Trisket, or add any of your own?
I wanted to say that I think mobility is extremely important, like you said earlier, and I think that Luna does a fantastic job of that. I feel like Luna is kind of like undermined in rush boxes because she doesn't have like insanely high kill potential, but the utility that she provides to, people like Assassins and Sakura and even Mystery Knight is, just it's off the walls. I mean, a lot of your opponents don't realize that you can just win God Realm and then that you can reach their whole team. At least that was my experience this past weekend. People overlooked that.
Yeah, Luna's a fascinating character in a rush box. And I could probably make an entire video on her. For the sake of time, we won't really delve too deep into it, but the mobility she provides is absolutely insane.
Oh, and also addressing mobility, also having Tenyo's headdresses on your healers for the chance of breeze can really flip a game around if you're running a rush box.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely
flip
insane.
The game completely upside down. I run Tenyo's on my Tiaras and Liana, and I'm thinking of putting one on my Iris, but we'll see.
And while I took Bozel out of my box for now, he works extremely well with Crystal Warlocks and Luna because you need ground. If you give him ground troops, he benefits from the +1 to 2 extra mobility you get from Luna. So with that being said, we can talk about ban pick strategy. So the first piece of advice I'd give you with ban pick strategy is you want to pick a tank to build around. I'm not saying pick one of your tanks. You definitely want like Landius and Juggler if you're gonna run any box. They're one high priority ban bait. If they start banning tanks, you can lock in as many high threats as you want. What I'm talking about is build a tank that you want to fight against every game. So if you want to fight against Landius every game, make sure your tank busters are equipped to deal with a Landius. Likewise, if you want to fight Juggler every game, you can accomplish that by first banning Landius. Then they'll be forced to pick Juggler, or they'll be first forced to run no tank against you. So, I got this piece of advice from Hazuchio. I thought it was great advice. I watched his YouTube videos. If you want more PvP content, YouTube videos, definitely go check out Hazuchio, Season 2 champion for Apex Arena. I realize he was using Lemon's account, but definitely go check his videos out. But I've planned my box to fight against Juggler for now. I could rearrange some things and fight against Landius. For example, here's a good example. I first banned their Landius. 9 out of 10 times they're going to first pick Juggler. They want a tank. If they first pick Juggler and they don't ban Claret, I could lock in Claret as my first pick. Let's say they do that. They lock in Juggler. I first pick Claret. Kind of a ballsy move if they haven't already banned my Zerda. But Claret gets banned or buffed by any of the 3 healers, and if she gets any of these 3 buffs, she can kill Juggler as long as he's not in water and with a faction buff. And actually, I think my Claret's strong enough she could kill most Jugglers who aren't in, or who even have faction buff and water. But we won't get into that. So pick a tank, build around it. Make sure your Mystery Knight, your Claret, your Leon can deal with one of the 2 tanks, and just focus on that one tank. Then you never have to worry about the revive. Likewise, if I was building Claret to attack into Landius, I would bring Peacemaker so that when she attacks into him twice, he won't revive. His passives will be disabled. And as soon as she kills the tank, I don't care if she dies. She did her job. The rest of my team is there to clean up. Next, an important ban pick strategy is watch out for anti-rush counters. So let's say that I ban Landius, and then my opponent bans my Landius. I first pick. I end up first picking Zerda. And then I see that he first picks Claret. Okay, he is running an anti-rush box strategy. Claret's going to shut down a lot of my high mobility targets because she'll be able to pick off anyone she wants if I don't have a tank. And her picking off my team could be devastating. So you want to watch out for people like Claret or Luna, or basically anybody with really high mobility. Watch out for people chucking Iris. You definitely want to watch out for Leon Hearts. If they're P1, player 1, and they teleport in a Leon Heart, they could absolutely ravish your team and remove your Act Again abilities. That shuts down a lot of your assassins. That shuts down Luna, shuts down Claret. So watch out for rush picks. If they start anti-rush picking, you better have a better rush box than they do, or you better know how to be creative and adapt to their playstyle. Likewise, you want to watch out for people like Yulia. She's not going to die in one hit to Zerida or any of these people in this box except for Listel and Sakura, and she won't die in one hit, but they can poison her or debuff her to the point that she's irrelevant. You just got to have ways to address her, and ways would be like Hiei or a debuffer. And the final... Oh, no, there's a couple more things I wanted to mention. I already talked about synergy and buffs. For ban pick strategy, I like to first ban the tank, so you force them into one tank, and then I like to ban 2 healers. So, for example, I ban Landius, they pick Juggler, and I want to bust Juggler down with Claret or Mystery Knight. I'll probably want to ban Tiaras because Claret can't attack twice into Juggler if Tiaras' healing light keeps bringing him back up. So I'll probably ban Tiaras and then whichever healer I don't want to fight. If they're aggressive, get rid of Iris. If they need gospel, get rid of Liana. I usually do that second or third ban, so that'll give you insight into the composition they're going to end up running, and you can already start locking in your threats by then. And finally, my recommendation in ban pick: don't be afraid to run with zero healers and zero tanks. So let's say they ban Mylandius. I say don't lock in a tank. Don't go for juggler. Lock in Zerida. You get a free pick on Zerida, so you get Zerida. Then they're like, okay, I'm going to ban you out of tanks. They ban juggler and Tiaras. Okay, well, now I have no tanks picked, and they're threatening to ban two healers, Liana and Iris. Do I grab a healer? No, let's go with a tank buster. I go Zerida Claret. Okay, they ban two healers. I get another third pick on whichever high threat I want. Let's go with Diehard. So now I have Zerida, Claret, Diehard. They're definitely going to be wanting to ban threats like Listel, who can just absolutely ravish Juggler. Sakura can ravish Juggler. These two are going to be high priority bans. But then they have to worry about Mystery Knight, Yulia, Luna, Joshua, Hiei. Absolutely devastating picks. So even if they ban Listel Sakura, I lock in Hiei. Boom. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 meteor characters immediately picked. And then my pick of any of these great characters, Yulia, doesn't need faction buff or anything. Josh, self faction buffs, great AoE support damage. So don't be afraid to go with no healers and no tanks. Consider them a blessing if they get banned, because then you get to run a super aggressive box as long as your aggressive box can handle them. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about with the ban picks. Did you want to add anything to that, Tris?
I'll just address in the last point you said. I've noticed that people who try to ban out your healers and tanks feel that it's a necessity that they pick a healer and tank, because then they're like, oh, well, if I pick healers and tanks, then I'm going to out-sustain them. But if you go 100% rush and they have a healer and a tank, as long as that tank is not, or as long as that healer is not Tiaras, you're probably going to kill every single thing on their team anyway. So it really doesn't work in their favor, because they're like, oh, I'm going to sustain, but they can't keep up with the damage you're putting out. That's the point of a rush box.
Yep. And the more healers and tanks they pick, really that's the less threats you have to deal with. So if they end up with a juggler and two healers, which happens more often than you'd think, then that means they have two threats, usually in the form of like Yulia or Listel. And if one of your threats, like let's say he trades at Yulia, okay, great. You have 4 threats left. They have 1 threat left. Can your Zerida pick off the 1 remaining threat? Can any of your combination of your 4 other people pick off the 1 threat? Because I can guarantee you their Iris and Liana are not going to go up and kill your Zerida. I mean, so if you can trade your threats with their threats, you're going to vastly outnumber them, especially if you can bust their tank.
Yeah, the most important thing is if you go 100% rush versus somebody who picked a tank and a healer and, however many threats they got, you really want to make sure that their threats can't just kill one of your people and then retreat back behind the tank. That's how you'll lose, because then that's them out-sustaining you. So you really have to make the plays, and you have to pick them off either by guard bypass or just straight up killing the tank.
And this is where it comes into play where you said mobility is king. So.
Yep.
Okay, so with that being said, we're going to briefly talk about in-game tactics, and then we'll actually show some in-game footage and comment on the ban pick phase and the in-game gameplay. So I've got 3 points for in-game tactics. 1, you want to know when to engage. Part of that is understanding the limits of your tank buster. If you know your Claret cannot bust down a juggler with faction buff and water, okay, that's fine. Wait for water to end. It's going to end eventually. I mean, yeah, they can bring Master of Ice if they wanted to, and Triton to really try to keep it up. But you more than 9 out of 10, 90 out of 100 times, or 95 out of 100 times, they're going to bring Triton, either faction buff, Great Dragon Barrier, or Beast Shock, or some combination of that. Just wait the 2 turns for Triton to end. What were you going to say, Tris?
I was just gonna say with Clarette in particular, if you think your Clarette can do something, she goes up there and does her first hit, and you're like, I'm not gonna kill with that second hit. Clarette has the luxury of being able to go back literally the same amount of spaces that she went forward, and you can just literally go back to your tank, start over, try again when you have more damage.
Yeah, Cleric can literally just fly in, do the first attack. If you can't do the kill, you can. Most Clarets can actually swoop around and roar into a target that's out of Juggler's guard range and kill it. If you want to do that, kill the healer off or something like that. Maybe pick off the Tiaras or something. Or, like Trish said, just fly back to your team. If they didn't lock in a healer, that's even better because then they don't get to heal up. They have a half-life juggler. But yeah, just wait to engage. Just because you're a rush strategy or rush box doesn't mean you have to rush in 100% of the time immediately, turn 1 or turn 2. Sit back, be patient. Wait for the prime opportunity to swoop in and get them. Practice your tank busting under real scenarios with friends. If you're not sure if your Claret or Mr. Knight can kill a tank or anything like that, then ask your friends, hey, could you put your juggler in faction buff and water? I want to see how much damage I do with a couple of Claret attacks. Can you do this? Can you do that? We do this all the time. Practice, test your limits. Remember what their defense looks like when you do those things. Remember their MDEF if you're MK. But yeah, I think patience is key. So know when to engage. You don't have to rush in immediately. Wait for a good time to attack. The next point, eliminate their win condition. If they have 2 threats, if they have Yulia and Listel, pick off the Yulia. Once the Yulia is gone, all you have to deal with is Listel. Listel's not too hard to deal with as a rush box if you space properly. She can't just run in and blood dance you if you're more than 4 or 5 spaces apart, typically.
And spacing out is even easier to do with a rush box because your character should have fairly high mobility. You
Absolutely.
can be everywhere at any time on the map most of the time.
And then I think the final point I wanted to make was the last thing to do in game is to make your opponent uncomfortable. The reason they're going with a tank and a healer and threats is because that's their comfort zone. What happens when you eliminate their tank? They don't know what to do. They don't know where to stand. There is no good place to stand. You have more mobility than them. You have more kill potential than them. They have less threats than you. If you can kill their tank or you can force them into an awkward position, you're making them uncomfortable. They need to try and adapt to you. And I think that gives you a huge advantage.
Addressing that specifically, my favorite thing to do as somebody whose first bans Landius is they lock in Juggler, and I second pick Sakura after banning their Liana, and there's nothing they can do. They can't gospel. They just kind of sit there for a second on the pick ban menu, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, if you know you want to lock in Sakura, like they leave you Sakura and you can ban a couple healers, ban Liana and Close.
Yeah.
And they don't have any way to reliably dispel the Sakura debuff off of Juggler. So, yeah, make them
And also,
uncomfortable.
keep in mind that Weiler also has the ability Dispel, so Weiler
Yeah,
2
so watch
on
out
the run.
for Weiler whenever he becomes meta instead of Close. I mean, you can ban Weiler instead of Close and you're just fine. Leave him with Tiaras and Iris, the worst debuff removers in the healer meta. I mean, yeah, you can throw an accessory on them to remove the debuffs, but
Goddess tier.
it's not a great option. Okay, that being said, oh, and another way to make them uncomfortable. I mean, throw Leon out there. He literally just ruins everyone's day. Like, there's a lot of options. Okay, so we're first going to watch a game that I won and one that I lost. So We're actually going to slow this down. Take a look at the boxes. I know it's really easy to just rush past the band pick stage, or to not pay attention to it, but I think it's incredibly important. So if you can slow it down, let's look what he's got. He has 2 tanks, Juggler and Landius, 4 healers, Liana, Tiaris, Close, and Iris, and a pretty standard box. Leon's a little bit, a little atypical, not so much anymore. Elwyn's a little atypical, but other than that, it's
Well,
relatively meta.
I think that the Leon there is kind of to synergize with the fact that Elwyn and Leonhard are both Empire. Just a thought. It's my
Yeah,
theory.
and I mean, isn't Yulia Empire too? I don't know. I'm
No,
bad at these
she's not.
things.
She's not.
Okay.
But she is an infantry, so that I think that makes me believe that this guy first bans Landius.
Oh yeah, she is infantry. So, yeah, relatively meta box. I first banned Landius because I've teched my box to fight jugglers. Okay, he bans Listel. Kind of a weird ban, but I get it because he's going to first pick juggler. Doesn't want me to Reaper's Touch. Yep, locks in juggler. Now, what do I ban? Okay, like I said, I ban his 2 healers. I ban Tiaris because I want to tank bust. I ban Liana because I don't want him gospeling people. He could gospel Leon. He could gospel Yulia. It'd be frustrating to deal with. I lock in Zerda, immediately going for rush. Now, look, I'm baiting him. I'm saying, hey, ban my tanks, ban my healers. He, on the other hand, he's being forced to run a pretty meta lineup. He's being forced to run Close or Iris, and really, I don't think that's going to do much for him. Okay, so he bans Sakura and a tank. He's afraid of debuffs. I don't know why he's afraid of Sakura debuffs when he could bring Close, but maybe he doesn't want to bring Close. Maybe he wants to bring Iris. And he
Yeah,
bans a tank.
I think your opponent was a little overly cautious there with banning the Sakura instead of banning Landius and Juggler together.
Yeah. So probably a misplay on his part. Well, I mean, definitely a misplay, but banning my tank. Okay, I don't care. Ban my tanks. I'm going to lock in high threats. All high threats. And he locks in Iris. Okay. I ban 2 of his people. This is the first time I've had to do it. I ban 2 people who would be anti-rush characters, Zerida and Leonhart. If his Leonhart as T1 jumped in and AoE'd the crap out of my team, I don't have a juggler to prevent the massive damage. I'm going to lose all my act again abilities. Get rid of those anti-rush characters. And what do you expect? Lock in Clarette. Clarette's going to get buffed by Zerida, and she's going to be able to bust that tank if I need her to. He bans Mystery Knight and Yulia. I mean, Mystery Knight. I mean, these are fine bans. He doesn't really have many options here, but those 2 characters didn't have much synergy with this. He's leaving me all my meteors. Hiei, Diehard, Joshua. Okay, he picks Yulia. Pretty good pick. Because it's going to be hard for Zerida or Clarette to kill Yulia. Yulia could just walk on in and just destroy those characters. So I ban Luna. I don't want Yulia getting buffed, and I don't want her getting buffed from Elwyn either. Likewise, Luna provides high mobility for Yulia. I need an answer for Yulia. Do I have any answers? Boom, let's lock in Hiei. He's a really good answer to Yulia, and he gets buffed. Okay, he bans 2 healers. He's going for ban bait. I don't care about my 2 healers. And he locks in Listel. That's a good pick. It's going to be hard to kill Listel, but is she going to be able to accomplish much? She doesn't have a juggler to Reaper's Touch. She actually has no healers to Reaper's Touch. And her Blood Dance, it's going to be minimally effective, especially if I make him uncomfortable and bust his tank. I get rid of Leon and Bozil. Bozil could be frustrating if he AoE silences, and Leon, he's got high range, 5 + 3 movement. He's got 8 movement. And especially if he gets tossed forward by Iris. I mean, he could T1, just pick off anyone he wants. Get rid of that. Don't want to deal with that. I'll deal with Slowpoke, Rachel, or Close. I mean, bring me either of those. I lock in Iris. Gives me more mobility. I can chuck somebody in at the end of my turn if I want to just do some an end of turn pick off. He bans Landius and Joshua. Doesn't have to worry about any tanks. He picks Close, and I lock in Diehard. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 meteor characters right here, and Iris. Huge synergy. He ends up with no synergy. Juggler buffs no one but himself. No one else has faction buffs. What were you going to say, Tris?
I was gonna say, like we talked about earlier, how it was probably a misplay that he banned Sakura and Juggler, but then I thought about, you gotta realize, for instance, when you're making your opponent first pick Juggler, the discomfort that you're putting them in when you have a Sakura and Listel in your box is really immense, and some people fear it too much, others not enough. It really, when you go for a strat like this, people don't know how to handle it. They just don't.
Yeah, it's
Most of
super
the time,
uncomfortable.
yeah, it's really uncomfortable. It's completely out of their comfort zone because they're used to fighting meta players. I mean, season 3 is not that old. Most people are still used to season 2 push meta, and season 3 is a lot more aggressive than that.
Yep. So let's get into the fight and see how it develops. And actually, before we let it roll out, let's just see what he's got. He's got Triton, Faction Buff, and Beast Shock. Close is running normal Close plus Blizzard. Normal, well, Magic Guard? No. Yeah, Demon
Yeah,
Scout,
it's Magic
Demon
Guard.
Guards, Demon God's Bulwark, Blood Dance Reaper's Touch. We got the Awakened Yulia and normal Iris with Mass Resist. And running normal assassin stuff on Diehard. He's got his awakened ability, not ability, but he's got his 6 cost skills. Normal Claret and Zerida with 2 damage up modifiers and a Chucker Iris.
Checker.
Okay, so this is actually a decent plan on his part. He's immediately moving his juggler back. This juggler is going to be out of range of my Claret, who stands still. What this accomplishes is he gets faction buff and he can move forward next turn and water buff. If he were to just stand right here and faction buff, I'm pretty sure I'd be able to pick him off immediately. Now I do have the option of teleporting Claret forward with Iris, but he's P1, so Claret would not be able to attack into Juggler, most likely. At least I don't want to. But yeah, he's moving back. That's a fine play. And I'm taking my time here. Just moving my assassins forward a little bit, getting buffs ready in case I want to pounce in or chuck somebody forward. Got a couple breeze procs that are going to be irrelevant because I'm so far back. Yeah, we're starting out slow. Just because I'm rushed doesn't mean I need to get in their face immediately. Okay, now he moves forward with Triton. He's feeling more confident now. So I'm staying back. I don't need to rush in. Okay, so let's go back up a little bit. That's his first misplay right there. He moves his Yulia right here, and Hiei is able to get within 4 blocks of her and AoE her. You never want to do this with Yulia. You never want her in front of the tank against a Hiei. If she was behind the tank and I was able to use my AoE, she'd be healed. But now she's vulnerable. She's below her health threshold, so she can't revive if she's below 70% health. Hiei gets the free pick off. He's able to run back with the meteor buff. He gets an irrelevant Reaper's Touch on Hiei. And I'm moving my other assassins forward to follow up. I check Zero to forward a little bit just to decide whether I want to put more pressure on or not. He moves Listel out of range of pretty much everyone, so I just get closer, spacing my people apart so that there's no way she can run up and just blood dance people, especially multiple people. And then, of course, Hiei gets to attack twice. I wanted to make use of his ability before he got picked off by anything. Put the undispellable heal reversal onto Juggler. There's no way Juggler can get healed. He recognizes that. He has no options. I mean, he's completely screwed here. My Claret destroys the Juggler, and then my remaining threats just ravage his Listel with little to no recourse on his part. His healers have already moved. I'll get some free hits on him with my assassins. So that's game. So poor positioning on his part immediately gets punished. I win the game, no casualties. Now Hazuchio is far more prepared. Or did you have any comments on that one, Trisket?
No, I think you covered it all.
Hazuchio is far more prepared for these kind of strategies. He likes to dabble in rush himself. So let's take a look at how he approaches the band pick and the overall strategy in general.
Before we get into the band pick, I just want to say Hazuchio has even been running Sherry and Leon as of late in his box.
Yeah.
He's going full rush.
Oh yeah, I mean you can see Sherry right here. He's not running a Leon in this particular box, but he was running it for basically 12 hours on Sunday. I first ban his Landius because that's what I'm equipped to deal with. But let's take a look. He's got Landius, Juggler, 1, 2, 3. Does he only have 3 healers?
I only see 3 healers.
Yeah, so he's only running 3 healers. He's a bit rushy as well. He bans my Landius. He locks in Juggler, wants to get his 1 tank. Immediately I ban his anti-rush, which is Zerida. She's pretty much got the most mobility here. Luna's got a bit. He's got a couple of Liars and Leonhardt, which are troublesome. I lock in Zerida. So he immediately recognizes I'm going rush, so he wants to eliminate my tank buster. That's great on his part. He immediately eliminates Claret, who synergizes extremely well with Zerida, so that's a huge downside for me. I don't have Claret to completely destroy his Juggler.
I think he also realized that you banned his tiaras for a very specific reason. I don't know if we specifically addressed it, but if your opponent has tiaras, Claret cannot tank bust.
Yep, and that's why I chose just tiaras. So he opts for Liana. Liana is a very, very good pick here. Liana is going to enable him to bring someone like Yulia. Yulia, who doesn't have a faction buff remaining. Well, I mean, he can try to get Luna, but if he picks Luna, I ban Yulia. If he picks Yulia, I ban Luna. So he doesn't have a faction buff for Yulia. This is going to give him a lot of options if he chooses Yulia, which is a great anti-rush character. Okay, so I ban a couple other anti-rush characters. I ban his Leonhardt and his Luna. And I lock in Dieheart. Synergy with Zerida, high mobility, high kill potential. He bans my Luna and Yulia. Yulia would be very hard for him to kill, so I get that. Luna, I don't know how I feel about banning Luna. He probably wanted to get rid of the mobility buff here. Other than that, she had minimal synergy with my box. If I were him, I probably would have considered banning Hiei if he was gonna pick Yulia, because he is a pretty big counter to that. Either way,
he could have tried to ban Yulia and one of your healers to see if you'll pick a healer.
Yeah, he could have, but
I mean, even if you're running a rush box, you don't always have to opt for no healer. I think that's important to say. Yeah. If your opponent lets you get a healer, pick a healer.
I mean, sometimes it's good, especially if you need somebody like Mystery Knight buffed. But yeah, this is an easy pick for me. First of all, I don't want to deal with Listel and this kind of slow box, and Hiei can get a free pick, so the other people are going to struggle to get picks, except for maybe Yusuke. So I lock in Hiei, easy pick versus Listel. He bans, Yulia. He bans Josh and Listel. Josh has synergy. He doesn't want to have to deal with. Right now, he's got one gospel. He can choose Yulia or Juggler. It looks like he's wanting to use it on Yulia. Locks in Yusuke. That's a fine pick. He's got good range, good mobility of breeze procs. I ban his ranged characters, leave him with some stubby ones. Lock in Mystery Knight. Remember, he banned my Tank Buster, so while Mystery Knight has minimal synergy, I know that if I lock in Mystery Knight with 3 healers left, I absolutely get a healer. And he picks Rachel. I lock in my healer to attack Blessing Mystery Knight. Let's take a look at what we got. I think Yusuke's got his normal setup with Spirit Gun, Juggler. He's not running a faction buff, so he's going to be buffed either by Rachel or no buff. Pretty high defense, base defense, really high base defense. He's got B-Shock and GBD. GBD is for Mystery Knight, since her magic attacks are int based. Normal Awakened Luna. So this is actually very interesting. He brings Sky Archer here. That's a very interesting pick versus my box. As you can see, I have absolutely 0 debuffs. Well, 0 relevant debuffs. Yeah, Diehard can, I guess, put someone to stun someone, but Liana's passive will get rid of that. So the only reason he's bringing Sky Archer is literally to limit my mobility, because all of my people are ground troops. So if he can put it in a choke point, it will completely prevent me from accessing that choke point without killing the Sky Archer. So very interesting
and
tag.
also, if you kill the Sky Archer, his Yusuke gets buffed.
Oh yeah, true. And so it's got huge synergy with Yusuke as well. That's probably actually the primary reason he brought it. So
it just so happened that in this match, he used it to choke you as well.
yeah. So I immediately move Mystery Knight down here. I won't get too much into it, but I'm getting her closer to her cumulative movement skill reset. So if she moves 25 blocks at 5 stars, she'll have all her skills reset their cooldowns. He's moving up, immediately going into water. I'm pushing forward with the option of pulling back if I need to. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting situation. His Breeze procced on his Rachel. So with that, he's got the option of coming in and just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He will literally get everyone in Rachel's Runic Void if he wants. The issue would be, and I actually I could have kept my tiaras way back to keep her out of range of this. However, I wanted to try and bait him in to use his Runic Void. That way I could get a pick off with someone like Zerida or anyone really, and immediately pick off a high threat. And he does not have the range to follow up and punish me. So he would not be able to save Rachel. Yes, I would take AoE damage and have a lot of debuffs, but I'll take that trade. He's smart. He plays it slow. He notices Yusuke's not completely ready, so he ends up backing up a bit. And on top of that, Breeze procced on Yusuke, which is absolutely terrifying, given that his Yusuke is ready. So I'm just backing up, trying to get my people out of Runic Void range. So now that he can't follow up as well, I have 1 in Runic Void range. Now it's not in range. Okay, so he's getting me pigeonholed back here, which is largely fine, other than the fact that if the tank moves here, Sky Archer moves here, I'm literally locked in, and with the smoke encroaching, it's going to be absolutely devastating trying to recover from a Runic Void where he's protected by Juggler with follow-ups immediately ready. So again, moving my Mystery Knight to get the cooldown reset. He's already planning on locking me in. He's already got this locked off. All he needs is to lock this off. And actually, he could lock it off with any number of people, like Yusuke, for example, who would be protected by the Juggler. So I've got to open this door up. Yeah, it gives Yusuke a buff, and it exposes Tiaris. But again, Tiaris isn't one of my threats. She's accomplished what I need. She's given people buffs. He comes down and smartly trades with my Zerata, who could have picked off the Rachel if she wanted to. So I get first move. I opt to go for the Cloret or the Yulia with Hiei. He's going to get another pick off with his Yusuke. Decides to protect his Yusuke by putting him by Juggler. Diehard trades into this pretty easily. And we're just in a trade-off now. My tank buster does what she does. Gets his tank with Broken Spear. She comes down Runic Voids. And this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is just trade after trade. I trade threats, he trades threats. I bust tanks, he comes in and follows up. And it's really just a race. I'm trying to make him uncomfortable. I ruined his tank. And now it's an interesting match right now. It's kind of it was hard to tell how this would play out. I've got two options here. I can go in with Mystery Knight, or I could go in with Diehard. I don't think either of them would be winning plays, but I opt to go in with Diehard because I was hoping to at least weaken her enough.
It should also be said that when you played this match, you had 15 seconds to decide that move.
Yeah. So I weaken her there, which is kind of interesting because I reset my cooldowns recently. And I have my giant AoE left. And she survives at 235 health. Absolutely devastating. But Zuchio's positioning and overall gameplay was just flat out better. So he absolutely deserved the win. But that's a really good example of how you can counter a lot of rush box strategies as they develop in the ban pick phase. And if you do that and approach it with the caution that Hazuchio did, you can easily address rush strategies. With that being said, did you have any comments on that match or the previous one, Trisket?
No, I think that match was about as close as it could be, and I think if your Mystery Knight had just an easy bit more damage and could have killed the Rachel in the AoE, you could have won that.
Yeah, I mean, that was close. I think at the end of the day, I mean, to be fair, I think I have wailed more on my characters than Hazuchio, so even if I was a little bit stronger, that's kind of an unfair statement because Hazuchio could have been stronger too. And his room for being stronger character-wise is probably greater than mine. So
Yeah, of course.
but yeah, I think that about covers it. I don't think it's worth playing. I mean, it's definitely worth playing Apex if you want the rewards. They're good rewards. They're fantastic rewards.
Even if you're bronze 3, it's good practice and rewards.
Yeah, it's SR enchantments. I don't think anyone who tries should be anything less than silver 3. You can easily get there even if you just use mercenaries well and a couple of your favorite heroes. You should be able to get up to silver 3 and get some juicy SSR scrolls. But what I was getting at is if you're going to play Apex, try to have fun while you do it. I don't have fun with the just slow tank push. I think it's incredibly fun running something super aggressive, and don't feel confined to the restraints of, oh, you need 4 healers and 2 tanks and you need to first pick a tank and make sure you at least have 1 healer. No, the game doesn't have to be played that way. You don't even need buku characters like Claret or Mystery Knight Bill. You can just do Leon. Like Hazuchio had an amazing game where he runs in with Leon, spreads everyone apart, and his very next move, because of turn priority, was to run in with Sherry and literally just ravish his team. He got immediately got 2 kills because of Wild Princess, and it was just phenomenal to watch. Definitely check out Hazuchi's YouTube or streams if you get the chance. He's a great player to learn from. Or Michuzak, another great. I don't think he calls himself a rush player, but he definitely plays. I think he runs 1 healer in his box, and I'm not quite that brave yet. So definitely check those people out. Incredibly fun to watch. I hope this provided insight to you guys. If you have any questions, just shoot them in the comments or DM me on Discord, and I'm happy to answer or give you advice on your box. That being said, Tris, do you have anything else you want to say regards to Apex rush boxes or anything at all?
Um, it's fun, and I don't think that you should say, "Oh, my characters aren't built enough," until you test it and you try it in an actual match and see how it goes for you. Because I guarantee you, at least one of the characters in your roster can one-shot one of the meta tanks. So just find out who it is, what they need, and try it out. It's fun.
Well, that being said, hope to see you guys in Apex. Later, guys.
Later.